Bianca Devins was 17 years old in July 2019. She had about 2,000 followers on Instagram and was on her way to becoming a counselor to young people until her life was tragically, brutally cut short. Her case would highlight a number of problems with social media, some of which were addressed by changes in the law, and many of which leave questions that the public, lawmakers, and social media platforms continue to reckon with more than 4 years later. Devins was a young woman who struggled at times with mental illness, depression, anxiety, borderline personality disorder, PTSD. That summer, her plans included studying psychology at Mohawk Valley Community College in Utica, New York, where she was from. Those with mental illness often feel isolation, and Bianca used social media to find her crew and provide refuge from the isolation. The flip side of that coin, though, was that she was also dealing with online harassment. According to a newspaper report, that harassment was primarily coming from incels, a term used to describe males that are involuntary celibate and had been going on for 2 years or more. She would meet Brandon Andrew Clark through social media a few months prior to her death. He was 21 years old that summer and had his own issues with PTSD arising from the violent relationship between his father and mother. Devins thought Clark was nice and polite, but told family members that she was not interested in dating him, at least not exclusively, and told him as much. Friends and family of Devins would say that the relationship was a platonic one, while police would say that the relationship was an intimate one. Whatever the case in the end, whether the relationship was intimate or not, there is little doubt that Clark wanted a measure of control and had expectations of Devins. Control and expectations that no person should feel entitled to, and this would end in horrific violence. A friend of Devins believes that Clark was likely exploiting Devins to encourage her to spend time with him, supplying drugs, and also potentially sexually exploiting her. On July 13th, 2019, Devins, Clark, and a friend named Alex went to a music performance in New York City. Devins posted about how excited she was to be traveling to Queens. After the show, Clark and Devins were to return to Utica together. They were in Clark's vehicle, where he had hidden a knife near his seat and where he had other implements of an evil plan, including a green tarp and recording equipment. There was an argument in that car. It is said the argument was over Devins kissing Alex, but as you'll see, it's more complex than that. What happened was not about a kiss, but about that control and those expectations that Clark built up in his own mind. During the course of the argument, Clark attacked Devins and killed her. He then posted pictures and video of his deeds, pictures that got to Devins' family before the police were even able to respond to the terrible scene. How traumatic that would be to find out about the death of a beloved daughter and sister in that way. He made phone calls as well to family members of his. The calls were so disturbing that his family called 911. When he posted photos of the scene to a Discord server, which had been shut down completely by Discord now, around 6 a.m. on the 14th, he added the caption, quote, "Sorry, F-worders, you're going to have to find somebody else to orbit." Discord users contacted police. Clark himself would also call 911 and give his name, Devins' name, and tell them that he would not stay on the phone long because he planned to end his life. When police arrived at the scene, Clark stabbed himself in the neck. He was laying over a green tarp which covered Devins and was posting more photos online. He had a suicide note ready and a message that said, "May you never forgive me." The truth of that being that Clark himself will likely be well forgotten, though what he did is likely to never be forgotten. He is unlikely to understand the difference. Police arrested Clark. He had emergency surgery and he was charged with second-degree murder. He would enter a guilty plea, then try to withdraw it, but ultimately sentenced to 25 years in prison. More important in every way than Clark was what happened, and what happened to him is how social media and lawmakers responded to the murder. This is part of Devins' legacy. The murder itself was shared widely on social media, including Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, 4chan, 8chan, and Incel.co. Many users seemed celebratory of what happened. Other users shared the images in order to gain engagement and followers, and still others shared the images for shock value. As one user told the BBC, quote, "People will do anything that gains them followers and some popularity," end quote. Some saved the images and used them to harass Devins' family, harassment that has slowed but continues. Social media made a lot of guesses and rumors about what happened and why, spreading false information at the speed of the internet. Media presumed and speculated as well, reporting that Clark was an incel, that he was an abusive male partner, that he was fame-seeking, or that he was fascinated by violent imagery that exists on the internet. Instagram and Facebook both shut down Clark's accounts and made efforts to stop the images from being spread. Hashtags were shut down, that the images were added to a digital database to quickly identify and remove sharing from some platforms. However, Instagram users who reported the images were told that the images did not violate their community guidelines. The images continued to persist on the internet for days, months, and even years. Devins' Instagram gained some 158,000 followers in the days and week following her death. Disturbingly, Clark's account, before it was finally deactivated, also grew. In response to the sharing of violent images of an actual human being who was brutally and tragically killed, and the poor response from certain social media platforms, Devins' family has called for increased legislation requiring social media platforms to deal with graphic content. Bianca's Law was introduced in 2020, which would require social media platforms to establish an office to identify and remove such content. Lawmakers introduced another bill that would create criminal and civil penalties for spreading such images, either to glorify the behavior or to harass others. In the end, in December 2022, New York adopted a version of Bianca's Law that makes it illegal to post, share, or publish personal images with the intention of degrading or abusing others. Will this help end sharing of violent imagery or the glorification of such behavior? Somewhat, perhaps, given that there are now, at least in New York State, consequences for some of this. Digital fingerprinting also helps, but there are ways around that technology, and far too many are aware of how to bypass these things. As social media platforms and lawmakers grapple with the issues, progress is being made, often in a responsive rather than a proactive way. However, even with AI to help, it's almost impossible to police the whole of the internet. And on it are some very dark places indeed, where sick minds with motives of their own, including capitalizing on extreme violence, thrive. In fact, we're treading a constantly changing and unmapped road on the internet. One tool that proved somewhat effective was the masses of users who banded together to flood the feeds, the tags, and the accounts of those who were determined to exploit this tragedy with tens of thousands of pastel-colored photographs inspired by the style of Devins' selfies. Together, they demonstrated the power of the internet to counteract evil with good, to counteract violence with support and caring. Until next Thursday. If you're enjoying these videos and want more, don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notifications so that you don't miss any videos. Thank you for watching. We really appreciate it.